Hey, I'm Allison from Learning at the Primary Pond. I'm a literacy specialist, and in this video, I'm going to share how you can easily differentiate some of the most common phonics activities. Before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love for you to do that now, and then also hit the little bell so that you're notified every time I post a brand new teaching video. The ideas that I'm about to share with you come from my book, The Phonics Playbook. I'll include a link for that in the caption. And that book is a guide for kindergarten, first, second, or third grade teachers to not only teaching phonics following the research, but also to differentiate and meet the needs of a huge range of students, even when there's one of you and you've got limited time. So after this video, definitely check that out. The link for the Phonics Playbook is in the caption, but let's dig into differentiation. Now, as I kind of alluded to with the book that I wrote, I know that when you are a classroom teacher, you have all of these different levels of kids that you're working with. And the question becomes how do I meet their needs? Because with phonics instruction, you do want to kind of target where they're at developmentally, because if a skill is way too hard or way too easy, that's just not what they need. And phonics in the early grades has such a big impact on kids' reading and also their spelling success. So phonics is one area that you really want to differentiate. And I'm curious what your experience has been specifically as it relates to phonics. So if you worked or have worked in the past in a classroom where there are kids on a lot of different levels in terms of their phonics knowledge, in the comments, would you just type lots of levels? And if not, I would love to know that too, because I feel like my experience and most teachers has been that there really has been a pretty big range of needs. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to differentiate pretty easily the following activities. We're going to go over blending and word reading activities, how to differentiate those, word building or dictation activities, which has to do with spelling, encoding words, and then decodable text reading. I'm going to give you strategies for all three of these common phonics activities. Okay, let's talk about having kids read words. Now, a big part of phonics instruction is applying phonics knowledge to reading actual words. And you can do this in many ways. We have blending lines in the Learning at the Primary Pond TPT store. There are just simple word lists, this is part of our phonics program. There's so many ways to do this, but you want to think about what words you're putting on those lists. Now, you could actually have different lists for different students. That's what we do a lot of the time in From Sounds to Spelling, my phonics program, okay? But you could also just have a main word list, or half of a list is for everybody, and then there's some other words that are challenge words for the kids that get there, right? And if some kids can't read them, that's fine, but then they're there for the kids who are ready for that challenge. So there's lots of different ways to set this up to where you can easily just pass out the word list, kids do it, and they get what they need. So when you're thinking about actually making these word lists, which I highly recommend, maybe you don't start out differentiating at the beginning of the year, but as time goes on, you want to build in that differentiation. If you have lower students, maybe they read fewer words, right? Or like I said with the challenge list, maybe some of the words are for everybody, and if they get to the advanced, great, but some kids will still be on the easier words. So it could be fewer words. There could be fewer features. So this is ending S blends in level 1 of From Sounds to Spelling. And so you don't see words in here like resting, ing is an inflectional ending, or lasted, ed, an inflectional ending. So these are left off. This is the easier list, and then this is the harder list. Now this list just has, it has more words, but also some of these words have more features. So here on the easier list, it's probably too small for you to see, but it'll have words like last, wisp, task. There is one blend at the end of the word. Now in this more advanced list, I didn't do inflectional endings on this one just because of where it falls in the time of the school year, but there are also some beginning blends and ending blends. So words like clasp, there's the CL blend and the ending S blend, or chest, there's a digraph and the ending S blend. Now, kids who are just struggling to master the S blends are gonna need not to have all those other distracting features, right? Then later they can fold them in. But some kids are already ready for them, and so their word list should look a little different. Another thing that you can do with those word lists is for kids who are ready, they can actually read multisyllabic words. So maybe some kids are reading EA words like leaf, and some kids are reading 2-syllable words with EA, that same pattern, same sound, but 2-syllable words or 3-syllable words. That's an option too. Now, everything we just talked about with the list can also be applied to dictation or word building. So dictation is just, or word building is an opportunity for kids to apply their phonics knowledge by spelling words. And actually spelling words helps with them learning to read words too. Fun fact. But, even if you're doing this in a whole group setting, like I said, like with this ending S blends thing, maybe some of your words are pretty straightforward, like fast, and they build it or they write it on whiteboards. But maybe some of your words, are like for the advanced kids, and some kids don't get it right, and that's okay. So it could be like resting, they have to build or write that. Or chest, right? There's a digraph and the ending blend, so adding in more features. You can have like a core set of words that all kids are building and spelling, and then you can give some challenge words toward the end. That way you're kind of meeting the needs of a range of abilities in your classroom. So everything we talked about as far as adjusting the word level in word reading would also apply to, word spelling. And of course, if you can do your encoding, like your dictation, your word building in a small group, great. Then you can fully give kids exactly what they need, right? But this solution of having a core list of words that they spell or build, and then doing some challenge words at the end, that can work even if you need to do the activity in a whole group setting. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about reading decodable text. Now, these are 2 examples from Sounds of Spelling. This is the easier version. It has an E on it, and then this is a little bit of a harder version, but it's the same core decodable text. Now, you could use this in a small group setting. You could also use it in a whole group setting where some, kids get different text from other kids, and you just have to talk to them about how different people need different things and make that normal and keep having that conversation. But if you're reading with them in a small group, that gives you even more flexibility. I do recommend reading decodable text in small group if you can, where maybe some of your kids, they can do the harder version, but it's a little bit hard. So perhaps you break it up over 2 days so they have more time to decode because they're decoding slowly. Or maybe before they read, you pull out some words that you think might trip them up and you practice decoding them together. So there are supports that you can use where the text is the same, but you give them more help to be successful with the text. Now, if they're really struggling and haven't mastered a lot of these phonics skills, then it's not going to matter, right? So we have to be conscious about that and choosing the right text for the right student. So that's a piece of it. Another thing that you can consider too, even if you don't use From Sounds to Spelling, is having 2 copies of a decodable text. And so with this one, this is the easier version. There's less text. So there's less text for them to read. The sentences are shorter and it omits some of the harder words. So this text said, Rod sat at his desk. He had a big chest. He said, I must get the lock off. Whereas this one says, Rod sat at his desk with the big chest. So a little bit wordier sentence, right? It had a lock with rust on it. To get the lock off the chest was his quest. So there's more going on there, right? You can potentially, I feel like AI, artificial intelligence tools are just exploding. You could potentially use AI to come up with an easier or a harder version of the text. Obviously, you have to really monitor that because AI tools are not always correct, but I just wanted to throw that idea out there in case it's an option for you. But regardless, like I said, there are still things you can do with the same text by breaking it down and making it more manageable for kids who need that support, okay? These strategies and so much more, those are covered in my book, The Phonics Playbook. And again, there are, research-based strategies and tips for teaching phonics in general, but the book is mostly about how do you meet the needs of such a big range of students in your class, even if you have to teach whole group. But I also talk about teaching phonics in small group, a combination thereof. What do you do when kids are really reading fluently? Do you still need phonics small groups? What do we do there? I cover all of that for kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers. We also talk about how to teach phonics to English language learners and support them with their language development. We talk about how to differentiate when you're teaching early kindergarten, like the alphabet. Is it possible? Should you? We talk about that there. Then I also talk about differentiating students' independent work. So if they're doing differentiated work with you, then when they're practicing like in literacy centers, they should also have some level of differentiation there. So I cover that in the book as well. There's also over like 90 printable resources that you get within the book. When you get your copy, look for, there's like a URL within there where you can grab them. So not only do you get the text itself, but you also get like assessments and things to help you implement what we discuss in the book. So check out the link for the Phonics Playbook in the caption. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that these ideas were helpful. Before you leave, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.